Welcome to the VBAC Homebirth Stories podcast, where we celebrate and share powerful VBAC homebirth stories to inspire and support mamas just like you. I'm your host, Ashley Winning, a VBAC homebirth advocate and mama of 3, and I believe every woman deserves to birth with confidence and trust in her body. In each episode, you'll hear real-life stories, expert insight, and encouragement to help you feel informed and empowered on your VBAC homebirth journey. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to another podcast episode. Today we have a returning podcast guest, Sarah, one of my beautiful, amazing clients who I have had the honor of supporting now through 2 pregnancies, which has just been amazing. I speak on my own behalf, Sarah, but I feel like we have a special relationship and I consider you like a friend now, and we get the
Like
honor
a
of...
friend.
Yeah, and we're going to meet
What
up.
about an actual friend?
Well, you haven't called any friend favors yet, but yes, we are going to be meeting up in person because Sarah lives in WA and I live in Queensland, and we're going to meet up in person. Is it next month?
Yeah.
Next month, which is super exciting. But yes, after working together for almost 2 years, and you keep in contact throughout pregnancies and that, and I love seeing all the photos and everything that's happening in your life. So you really keep up to what's going on with each other in their lives. But if you want to listen to Sarah's episode before we get into this one, you can go and backtrack. Otherwise, you can listen to this episode and then go listen to the other one after. It's episode 67. It's Sarah, mindset overhaul, small babies, 3 planned home births, HBAC after 2 cesarean, and special scar. So welcome back to the podcast, Sarah. Please just give us a bit of an overcap over your last 3 pregnancies and births before we get started on today's story.
Thanks, Ashley. Didn't expect to ever be another guest on your show with my surprise number 4. But yeah, just quickly, I had 3 babies before my 4th. My first was a planned home birth that we transferred in during pregnancy because there was some little worrying signs. He ended up being induced due to IUGR, which means he had a growth restriction and was a C-section under GA, was born at 2.2 kilos at term. My second birth, I planned another home birth, transferred in after 24 hours and opted for a C-section because I heard a lot about healing C-sections. And during that C-section, I had a uterine tear, so I ended up with a special scar, which led me to my 3rd birth. So with that one, I was planning my 3rd home birth and thought there's no way in hell that I wanted to go back to hospital to be have another cesarean or to be chopped off again. And thankfully, that was my first successful home birth.
Yes, and that we get to hear in the other episode, which was really great too, and
Yeah.
eye-opening because you did do a lot of work in that pregnancy to get you across the line. So anyone listening, that is a really good episode. The reason why I invited Sarah back on is because Sarah had some interesting challenges that happened. You had experienced in one of your pregnancies and you had a different outcome this time, which I think is beneficial for people listening. It was a very challenging thing to have to work through, and it was really nice to see you work through it in a way that worked well for you, but it was a challenging experience for you as well. So I think a lot of people can learn from this story. So thanks for coming on and sharing your story again with us.
Thanks, Ashley. Yeah. So you want me to start with my pregnancy?
Yeah, so let's start with your pregnancy because were you planning this pregnancy or was this a surprise for you?
This one was definitely a surprise for me. I think I was feeling a bit unwell on my son's 5th birthday party. Then the next day we were going to a wedding and I thought I'd try and do a test, which came out positive. And that was a big shock to me. It was a mutual, there's a bunch of friends who, one of the guys were getting married and I was really excited to have a fun night out with all my friends. And here I am pregnant again at another wedding, which is a lot of us have been through that. I think one of the first things I did after that was give you a call, Ashley, and say, what the hell? I'm not ready for this. I don't want to do this again. It was so hard last time. I think for me, like, as you said, we did do so much work through the mindset stuff and advocating for myself and all that kind of thing. And I also feel like that birth was such a breakthrough for me. I feel like it wasn't necessarily that ecstatic Instagram birth that you see, but for me, I really feel like I broke through a glass ceiling and finally did it.
Mm,
And that being said, I found it was really hard, painful, not overly enjoyable giving birth. So I wasn't overly excited about having to do it a fourth time.
yeah.
And knowing what birth, like what natural vaginal at home, no pain help birth was, I was freaking out a bit.
Yeah. And at this
Sure.
point you had your oldest was how old?
Just turned 5,
And you had and what were the other ages for your boys?
5, 3, 2, I think. Oh no, 1. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
1 because he
So
turned
you were
2.
in the thick of it.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And
I
you
thought I was getting
just
back into work and
yes, you got tricked,
stuff,
didn't
and
you?
then
You thought you were
yeah, there was another baby coming.
yeah, and I've worked with a couple of women now who have had surprise babies with back close gaps and that, and it's just, can you explain how that felt for you? Because I feel like there was a time period that it took you to kind of work through
Yeah,
accepting that ex happening.
I do want to say, like, I am very grateful that have good fertility. I just want to say that because I know a lot of people struggle with that, and I
Mm,
struggle with the fact that I've had very close friends struggle with that, and then meanwhile I'm like, oh no, not again, kind of thing. Because
yeah.
none of our babies were really planned, but particularly the fourth, I didn't ever think I'd be a mum of 4. Yeah, quite overwhelming. I think for me, I find it hard. Like I felt guilty because it can be hard when you're pregnant looking after other little kids, and I always feel guilty that I can't like give my full energy to the other little boys running around. Yeah, and I felt overwhelmed. I thought I was going to start getting rid of, change tables and things like that and moving on to the next chapter. But I mean, after a while, I think, yeah, definitely grew on me. The idea grew on me, and I was definitely looking forward to another little baby
The
that was
idea
about to join.
grew as the belly grew.
Yeah, yeah. And just so grateful to have healthy babies and have a big
Yeah.
family. Now I'm just like so happy that it all happened and
Yeah.
everything happens as it's meant to
Yeah.
so far. Yeah.
So you find out you're pregnant, you call me. So we're going to be working together throughout your pregnancy. So you've got that emotional support. But what do you decide to do this time for your birth support and how does that kind of unfold?
It was kind of tricky this time because I didn't know what I felt called for. Like last birth, because I had stumbled across your story and heard about the 2C sections and the special scar. I was like, oh my God, that's like what I have. And Ashley birthed at home, and that's what I want to do. So I just knew straight away I wanted to work with you and like suck all of you like knowledge from you. But this time it was different because I think over the last 3 births, I've done a heap. I felt like I'd done a heap of work. I'd done the hypnobirthing courses. I'd done birth courses with my husband. I'd listened to so many birth stories. I had read the books, or listened to the experts. I've got, Sarah Buckley books, Rhea Dempsey books, Rachel Reed books. I did a Rachel Reed course last time. So this time I was a little bit, I didn't know what I needed this time to get me through it. And I also felt bad that I felt like I wasn't doing enough, but at the same time, I didn't feel called to do anything. But I was feeling pretty apprehensive about the birth. I was feeling quite fearful because, you get your great home birth once. Are you going to get that again? And knowing that it's can be quite difficult to like advocate for yourself, and knowing that I was about to go on this journey of advocating myself to have a home birth after C-sections and what that entails. Yeah, I was feeling apprehensive. But some of the different things, I like to work on personal development stuff anyway, and I was already seeing a lady who does a bit of kinesiology and does hypnotherapy. So she does like birth relaxation. So I did couple of sessions with her, which ended up being quite useful. And I've also worked with a guy who does EFT, which is the tapping or the freedom technique. So I worked through a lot of my fears with him as well. And this time I found a book by Yolanda Clark, which is
Yeah.
what is it? Pain-free, like orgasmic birth or something like that, how to have an orgasmic birth. And I was like, oh, well, maybe if I focus on I didn't care about the orgasmic, I just wanted the pain-free
Okay.
birth. Like maybe I could
Yeah.
like think of that as something to like focus on. Maybe I could have that for myself. But I actually really enjoyed what she had to say in her book as well. I think that helped me this time. And obviously working with yourself.
Yeah. I remember you quoting things from that book, which I still haven't read yet, and I would like to read it just out of interest.
It can be
But
quite polarizing. So I kind of like that.
yeah, so this time were you, because I know that you had the same midwife for the first three births, and what happened this time? Were you planning a home birth? I mean, I know, but I'm just kind of wording it this way.
Yeah, so the second birth,
I like
yeah,
some
so
weirdo on the
it was
podcast,
my
so tell
second call.
me as if I don't know what's
My
going to
second call was
happen.
my midwife. Yeah, because I'd had her 3 times and I knew what to expect from her. I knew how, that kind of thing. And yeah, I've had a good relationship with her because she's
Mm,
been through a lot with me.
mm.
I've probably taken a few years off her life, some of the stuff, but um,
I doubt
yeah, and
it.
of course, I'd worked out that I thought my estimated due date was around the 1st, and she was off on a trip of a lifetime on the 2nd of August. Yeah, and my due date was the 1st of August. So
Mm,
that was not going to work out. So thankfully, she called around to a few of her midwives to find someone who would be happy to support me. I do think like in the midwife circle, in especially in Perth and that kind of thing, they don't all follow the same ethos, and there's a
mm,
lot of newbies to come in. So some are more rigid than others with who they're willing to support. And yeah, they're just all different. So yeah, I think it's something to be mindful when you're looking for a private midwife that just because you get a private midwife doesn't mean you're getting a home birth kind of thing. But luckily, she put me in touch with a really nice girl,
hmm.
kind of newish to the private midwife space, about 30 years old, so very different. Like my existing midwife, I felt like she was felt like a mother figure to me, which I found quite comforting. But
Yeah.
knowing that she wasn't around, I felt like maybe this is a sign for me to have a different experience this time, and maybe it was all for a reason, that maybe some kind of personal growth thing was going to come out of this. And
Mm,
so I was happy, it is what it is. And the midwife I ended up with was really lovely and
mm.
had an initial chat to her, and she said all the right things. So
She
went
did,
ahead
yeah.
with her.
Hmm.
Grateful to have someone that will take on two C-sections and a special scar, and she seemed really chill about all that. So yeah, lucky.
Yeah, it's good that you have those midwives there because I know here in Queensland it can be quite a struggle to find a midwife who will support a woman after multiple C-sections and add on a special scar or add on being plus size and oh no 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 we won't support you. And I get it,
Hmm.
like, upper is chasing midwives left, right, and
Yeah,
center. I was just so I know that there was like some questioning throughout your journey, but I was just so grateful that you had that, Sarah, because I know that so many women can't find that. I speak to women all the time who are like, I can't find a midwife, so I'm going to have
mm,
to have a unregistered or free birth doula or someone who isn't their first preference. And there is no
no,
perfect thing out there, but I wish there was more choices for women in the home birth
yeah,
space, our VBAC mamas. So
yeah, for sure.
so you
Yeah,
moved on with your midwife and you ended up hiring your midwife. And so what kind of happened throughout your pregnancy?
I had a pretty boring pregnancy for the start, which was great. That's what I like.
Yeah.
My son started school, and his best friend his mum happened to be a doula. So of course I'm in the, school pickup, blah, 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 birth this, birth that, everything. And we amazingly found out that she had had a home birth with my previous midwife. So the midwife I'd had 3 births with, she'd given birth with her and also been a doula at her birth. So that was great. We had like that kind of connection. So yeah, it got boring until my 35 weeks and 6 days private midwife appointment. And I always knew this day would kind of come where the thing that I have come up in my pregnancies is high blood pressure. And it's always kind of come up in the past, but I've always managed to somehow keep it within I think the cutoff that they like is 140 on 90. So I've always had the 138 on 88 and readings like that in the past. Oh, another good thing that this midwife did for me is that I usually have quite long cycles. So she kind of edited my due date based on that. She used the calculator. So
Hmm.
that gave me about another week under my belt as well. So
Mm.
I was probably a bit further along. So I understood that, your blood pressure does kind of creep up towards the end of pregnancy. But at
And
this,
what was your blood pressure before? Because I know working with you for the second time, this was kind of a common theme that was happening in your pregnancies. What was and you mentioned that you had a higher sort of starting point. What was your blood
yeah,
pressure
so
kind
my
of?
first one was 132 on 82. So that doesn't
Yeah.
give like a lot of wriggle room. And I come from a history. My mum has super high blood pressure. Hers is like brakes machines. Like,
Mm.
and she's like, that's just how I am, and that's how my body runs. Leave me alone. It's only in
Okay.
the
Yeah.
last few years that she's starting to take medication and stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, so I think that freaked her out a little bit. So I said that I'll go into the hospital and do a blood pressure panel just to like put our minds at ease.
Mm.
So I did that, did the blood, the urine, CTG, everything was fine. And at the hospital, my average blood pressure, yeah, because the blood pressure I got was 148 on 92. So when I was at the hospital, the average they got was 142 on 84. So only those 2 points on top over. So I was like, oh, well, that's fine. I'll just,
Mm.
that should be fine. But I did end up having, of course, as soon as you walk into a hospital, into one of those units, you're going to start seeing obstetricians and stuff like that. So she came and saw me and said, your blood pressure is high. Like over the thing, we recommend blood pressure medication and for you to stay overnight for us to monitor how that blood pressure medication affects your blood pressure. I didn't want to do that. I was said, can I come back and can I go think home and think about this and come back another day and let you know what I want to do? Because I don't like being pushed into making a decision straight away. I think
Yes.
it's always good to like go away and think about it.
Yeah.
She said,
And
yeah,
in the
sure,
in the
but could you,
hospital, it's a real like pressure cooker situation. So
yeah. And
it's really
sometimes feel a
good.
bit locked in there. And actually, we're
Yeah.
allowed to just walk if we want. I need to
Yeah.
remind my own self that, like, I don't have
Yeah.
to do anything. I can walk away. Like, I felt like I was totally fine, didn't feel sick. So I said, can I leave? And she said, can you please take the script with me? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll take the script and have a think about if I want to start this blood pressure medication. In the meantime, I thought I would see if there were some other kind of alternative things I could try, like the brewer's diet and maybe some homeopathy or something like that. Have a look around
Mm.
before I just committed to taking that blood pressure medication. And then I started talking, around the school pick up a little bit more with my doula friend, and we became, getting closer. And she said to me, "Oh, I'll come over and give you one of my release sessions to, help you feel a bit better, have a break from the kids, have a little massage and that kind of thing." And so I did that on the weekend, and it was so good to be able to talk to a doula about what was happening, because even with your private midwives who are on your team and they're like your advocate for your home birth, they're also medical professionals who have to follow the rules, listen to the hospital's policy, that kind of thing, to keep their admitting rights with the hospital and to not get, what's it called, reported, because apparently
Mm.
that's happening a bit in one of our hospitals, that
Mm.
angry midwives report the private midwife. So
Mm.
it's nice to actually have a doula on your side to kind of like have that chat with and to see the other side. So I really enjoyed that. Then I had a session with my old midwife. She wanted to come and see me. So she did one of my antenatal appointments and took my blood pressure. And she had a chat to me about taking the medication, because I hadn't committed yet, because I just knew that as soon as I take this medication, that's an intervention. And I really wanted to avoid the cascade of interventions.
Mm.
And yes, I didn't want to rush into saying, yeah, I'm going to do what you want me to do. But I had a chat to, my old midwife, and she was like, you could just like take this it's a very low dose that they've given you. It's the lowest, and it might make, your midwife feel a bit better about you birthing at home. And, if we could just keep things lower, it's like better for everyone and like no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was the next night or the night after that I said to my husband, I'll just start taking it. What could it do? And I knew my mum would be mad, because she's always like, no, don't take that stuff. And I'm like, Mum, it's fine. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
making everyone happy, going into the be a good girl, like compromise a bit mode. So I thought I'll take it. Yeah. So after that, I saw my midwife again at 36 and 6. So I'm starting to see them a lot more, because they're kind of monitoring my blood pressure and
Mm.
that kind of thing. And she gives me a little bit of the talk. like she sits me down in the birth room that I've set up and says, Sarah, now that you're on medication, I really need to strongly advise you that we do birth in hospital. And I was a bit taken out aback about this.
Mm.
She said, lots of women that we support, they have beautiful hospital births, and we can take the pool in and we can, bring the lights and all that kind of thing and have just a beautiful hospital birth. And I just started crying because it was really not what I wanted. Like for me, a home birth isn't just about where you're birthing. There's a whole plethora of reasons why people might choose that. Like for me, I love the fact that I'm in my own comfort of my own house. I like the fact that my kids are around. I like that my child will be born into their home, into a peaceful environment. I think that's one of the biggest whys for me for home birth is I think that lots of people say it doesn't matter, but it does matter how you're born, and like it sets you up for your life. Like you're born into a stressful, cold, sterile environment with people who've never met your family before, or you lovingly brought into the world with your family surrounding you in your own home and, feeling warm and safe. So that's one of the things I really didn't want to lose for my birth. So it really upset me to think maybe this is the birth that I have in hospital. Maybe I do have a vaginal birth in hospital.
At that point, Sarah, it feels like you were taking the medication to after the advice that it would help the midwife
Yeah,
feel okay with it, but then it turned out to be the very thing that your midwife was then recommending you birth in hospital for.
yeah.
So
And I
how did
knew
you kind of
because
feel?
I felt stupid because I knew that this can happen because I've already had two home births transfer in, and my second one was obviously was my choice, but I didn't feel like it was necessary. So I'm always so careful that I don't let myself get dragged back into hospital. So yeah, I was a bit annoyed, but I don't know. I spoke to my husband about it. He said that's stupid. You're gonna have a home birth, as they do. They don't like have to worry about.
Well, not all husbands are like that, but he was very
Yeah,
supportive,
yeah, he's an
wasn't he?
optimistic type.
Yeah, yeah.
Full like, and I know it'd be really hard to have a husband that doesn't support what you want in home birth and that kind of thing. But sometimes it can be kind of tricky the other way because they're like, everything will be fine, there's nothing to worry about, Whereas sometimes I feel like I have to think about. He's the definite optimist and I'm the pessimist, so somewhere in the middle we make a good team.
I'm in the same situation. My husband is the optimist, and I know what it's like.
Yeah, but yeah, I appreciate his belief in me, even when I don't have it in myself. So then we get to 37 and 6, and I've had things like blood tests and stuff like that because I think in my mind I'm constantly trying to prove that I'm okay, which is part of my journey. It's kind of like what Yolanda talks about in her book. She's like, you create the pregnancy and birth that you want, kind of thing. Like and I do believe that for some, like for myself, that sometimes we can buy into the drama and make it more dramatic. Like I kept taking the test like this whole pregnancy. I could have just said, no, I'm fine, leave me alone. So my next one I have isn't, we decide that to put the midwife at ease, I'm going to have a private ultrasound. And the ultrasound is going to show that everything's fine and that she can back off because I'd had funny tests and blood pressure before with my firstborn, and he was my IUGR baby, and I knew that this baby was not him because my belly was big and he's kicking around, and it just felt completely different. Like there's no way that so I just wasn't worried. So I said, I'm going to have this blood test and I'm going to have this ultrasound, and she'll see that she can chill. So I have the ultrasound, and he's moving around well and great size, and all the Dopplers are great, but has low amniotic fluid. So should be a reading of 7, and this guy had a reading of 4.7. So that was low. And also, I think I had a blood test, and some of the readings were like slightly out. Everything, yeah. There was no protein and stuff like that, but there was just a couple of, I think they do like test like 8 things and maybe 2 were like slightly out of range. So that freaked her out as well. She's like, you're on
Yeah.
blood pressure meds. you're got these little bit of dodgy blood tests, you got high blood pressure, you've got low amniotic fluid. I need to really strongly suggest that we birth in hospital. So
Yeah.
oh my God, I feel down looking like I'm having hospital birth. So
Were you drinking
no.
water?
Yeah, no, I'm terrible at drinking water. Yeah, so that's right. Like part of it was I did have a chat to you about what the hell is low amniotic fluid anyway. So then
Yeah.
you and I did a bit of a deep dive into, I think, some of Rachel Reed's work and other
Yeah.
things about how do they measure it? Is it an accurate measuring? What does it mean? All that kind of stuff. So,
Mm.
and I knew that I can be quite terrible at drinking water, and we knew that, increasing your water take could like perhaps fix the problem. So then that was another thing that felt on the cusp as well.
Yeah.
So, and yes, it was awesome to be able to speak to you. And I also spoke to my doula friend. I'm like, give me another session. I need you to come and relax me again. So she did, and she was
Literally.
great too. She was like you. But she is gung ho, mate. She's like, this is your first fourth birth. You deserve this home birth. You're not going to hospital. You can do this. You're going to kick ass. Like she was really like would up my energy as like. And so I said to her, will you be? Can
Corner.
you be at the birth with me? Can you be like
Yes.
a doula for me at my birth?
Oh, that's so nice.
And so she ended up deciding to do that.
Yeah.
I've never had a doula, I've had it like a person that comes to the birth with you because I guess like with the private midwife it's quite expensive. So I've always thought, oh, we're already like forking out, somewhere between 6 and 7 grand for a private midwife. Surely they can do enough for me. I don't need a doula. But I think that in my experience now, I think a doula is so good because they really hold you, whereas the private midwife is making sure that the medical stuff is covered. Yeah, I wish I'd had someone with me every birth. But no, yeah, it is what it is. So
Yeah.
yeah, I thought, wow, I'm gonna have someone there like there who's on my and I felt like she was very on my side as well. So I asked her to be my person. And then at 30, I was 38 and 3, and with the private midwife, I think I'd started to take, yeah, taking the blood tests, the blood pressure stuff. But the doula said, can I come and meet your private midwife and be at the appointment with me? So that was nice. So they could get on the same page, like learn that they're both going to be there. And the private midwife was kind of felt a bit more chill at the appointment as well. But she did ask me to sign something called an Appendix 6, which was kind of like full on. So it's because so many of the private midwives were getting reported if something would go wrong with a home birth, like say a home birth lady had something going quite wrong and they'd transfer in. This particular midwife was reporting the private midwife, so they were all a bit quite scared. But this was kind of like a bit, I found this Appendix B quite full on because it's a record of understanding. It says it is recommended that this form is completed when a woman chooses care outside of these guidelines. Yeah, these guidelines and against the advice of her midwife. So in this form, I was kind of like signing that I want to choose to go against the hospital and go against my private midwife. And she like had to there's this whole thing that they have to fill out and she had to say all of the things that she's told me that were risks and I had to answer all of those concerns with my own stuff against that and then sign that. So for me, because I can't say that I did really felt like I didn't need to go in and get induced, but at the same time, you do have like worries, concerns for your child. Like obviously, no one ever wants anything bad to happen to their baby or to themselves. But I would spend time really meditating on it. And to me, I felt that it would be a lot safer for me to wait for spontaneous labor rather than go in and try and get induced or have another C-section because a C-section has gone bad for me before when I had the special scar, like that was not fun. And
Yeah.
inductions have gone bad for me before when it ended in a general. So I would like spend time in the bath, just like closing my eyes and like asking myself what is right for me. And for me, I really felt at this stage, unless something popped up like that looked like we weren't doing okay, I would go straight to the hospital. But at this stage, like, I had no swelling, I had no protein in my urine, I had no headaches or anything like that. So I felt well, and I did feel a little bit unwell with my first in my first pregnancy, when I did transfer into the hospital and get an induction, I wasn't feeling like 100%. So I knew I didn't feel like that. I felt okay. But some of the stuff that was written in this was potential for developing PET leading to possible fitting, stroke, and labour. This could lead to a brain bleed. If blood pressure remains unstable, it could cause harm to the baby and altered placental flows and possible abruption. Like, this was all written in this form, and I had to basically sign that I wasn't going to listen to that.
So it's pretty scary stuff that you're being asked to acknowledge is a risk. And so you're having some like fears come up in the background that you know this is the right thing to do, but at the same time you still don't know like what's going to happen, and it's a bit scary, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. That's the hardest part, especially when you're getting towards the end of pregnancy. I think that's when the wheels can really come off, like anyone's pregnancy. And like being in the fetal assessment unit and stuff, like hearing other people getting told you need to get induced, you need to get like, and them saying I don't want to, but then obviously they're scared for their lives or their babies and stuff, so people choose what they think's right at the time, but it's like heavy stuff. And still my husband's like, stop listening to them. Like, you need to just cut everyone out and just like
cut them out.
Wait for the. I'm getting a bit sick of her. I'm like, fine, you can't say that, right? So anyway, I have
because you're stressed at home, obviously, and you're talking to him and he doesn't want.
And I'm like, what if this baby dies? Your whole family will hate me. Like, my whole family, they'll think I'm a baby murderer. He's like, don't be ridiculous. He's like, you know what you want. He's like, also do whatever you want. He's like, go go to hospital. Support that, but like, don't be bullied into it if you don't think it's the right thing. I'm like, great, so it's still my decision.
Yeah.
Someone make a decision
it's
for
your
me.
decision. It's your decision. And you're like, because this is not your body, it's my body. Yeah. It's hard, isn't it? Because
so hard.
Yeah,
and it's
because we're
someone
the ones
else's
that bear
life,
the
like
burden.
it's your unborn child's life.
Yes. Mama, let's talk about birth support, the kind that wraps around you like a warm hug and reminds you that you are powerful beyond measure. If you're planning a VBAC or home birth, you already know that birth isn't just physical, it's emotional, spiritual, and deeply personal. And you don't have to do it alone. As a birth doula, I walk this journey with you, offering unwavering emotional support, deep trust, and guidance from someone who truly gets it. I've walked this path myself. I understand the fears, the hopes, the fire in your belly to do birth your way. With in-person support from Brisbane to the Gold Coast and virtual doula support no matter where you are in the world, I help you prepare, not just with knowledge, but with confidence. Because when you feel safe, heard, and held, that's when birth unfolds beautifully. Let's see if we're the right match. Book a free 30-minute coffee chat with me at ashleywinning.com. Just click the black button at the top that says find out more and book a coffee chat. You deserve this support, Mama, and I'd be honoured to walk beside you. So how many weeks are you at this point then?
So that was when I was 38 and 3. She asked me to sign Appendix B. And obviously, once you get to 38, they're like, okay, your baby's full term. Go get induced. Lots of people get induced at 38, especially with high blood pressure. My second born was a spontaneous at 38 and 4. So I was like, 38 and 4, like I've had one that early. We could do this. He could come anytime. Like, let's just give it a few more days. Then when 39 and 1 came, my blood pressure was okay. She recommended a review, said no, it's fine. On the night of the 5th of August, I started to feel like really crampy, maybe something was going to happen. But then we had this like most freakish event where my cat had a little turn, became unwell, and passed away, like in the hallway. And I think that, like, sorry, that's like a gross story, but I think that made me go, because it freaked me out so much and was so quite traumatic, the way that he passed away. I think that kind of might have made me pregnant longer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was like, oh, damn you, poor baby cat. So sad anyway, yeah. So then I was still pregnant. And then 39 and 3, I had a midwife appointment with my backup midwife. So she came along and she's like she has been a midwife in the Perth home birth scene for like a long time. I would say probably at least 10 years or whatever. And she's kind of like one of the stalwarts. And she's a VBAC, always done VBACs. And I had a really good chat with her. And she said to me, like when she left, she said, I understand why you're doing what you're doing. And like, I feel like your reasoning makes sense. And I thought, wow, that's so nice. Like it made me feel that I wasn't crazy. At 40 and 3, so I'm still pregnant. I have another private midwife appointment and my blood pressure is 152 on 99, so like very high. By this stage, I'm like dreading this blood pressure machine. I'm like, it must be your blood pressure machine. Like I can't cope with this. Every time I have like a bad reading with you, I go to hospital and then it's fine. Or like on the very cusp of what they want. So, but that's quite high, like 152 or 99. She wants me to go in for a review. And she's saying, you've had some blood tests now. She's been calling the hospital and they've been talking, and then she will talk to me and go, look, they're really concerned. Like this is turning into pre-eclampsia. You need to go to the hospital and get checked out. And I'm thinking, wow, pre-eclampsia is like scary. Like it sounds scary what you hear about that. And I remember like when I was in the waiting room at the hospital, that's when I ended up chatting to you on the phone, and we did another deep dive in what is pre-eclampsia, what are the signs, what are the cutoffs, like what levels are we looking at?
Yeah, that was
So
how were you feeling at that point? So, I mean, that's like, it's gone next level, right?
yeah.
Mm.
Then I'm going, yeah, because it's not something I dealt with before, so I didn't really know the ins and outs, but it sounded like a scary thing and like a life-threatening thing. So
It
I
sounded
was,
like a scary, life-threatening thing.
yeah. So and then you want to go, no, stop, look at what does the information say? What's the evidence? What do we know about preeclampsia? So I did a bit of a deep dive with you then.
Mm.
Went in, had my CTGs and my bloods and all that kind of stuff done, and everything was like looking good. And my blood pressure, I can't remember what that was then.
And you were pretty much
Kind
like,
of,
it was like borderline, and they didn't have a lot of markers. Like some of the
no,
things were missing, but they were still calling it preeclampsia.
yeah,
And
if you don't, I didn't
so,
even have protein.
yeah, so there was a few iffy things like happening there, but you were being labeled that because you had the high blood pressure, which was a normal thing for you in all of, majority of your pregnancies for you to experience, maybe not as high as this time, but I mean, you are a mum of three at this point,
I know.
pregnant with
And
your
some of the
fourth,
mornings
and
that she came over, you've had a hissy fit at your husband because they've annoyed you, and then so your blood pressure.
yeah, your blood
They're trying to
pressure's
get the
through the
kids
roof.
out. It's like they're running late like my son's running late for school, and then she's like, right. But I mean, I always booked the time. Like
Yeah.
that's probably a dumb time, like morning rush. But yeah, so it's hard to know. And everyone said to me, go get a blood pressure monitor and just like monitor it throughout the day.
Yeah, I
Like
remember that
thought
now.
about that as well. I just didn't feel that I wanted to do. I don't know.
Yeah.
Didn't feel right for me.
So you're in the
I went in,
hospital now, and
yeah, I went in
then
for the review.
and who spoke to you? So did a doctor come and speak to you?
So I was on the phone to my midwife as well, and she said, "Look, there's an obstetrician that looks after all the home or the private midwives clients. She's like
Okay.
they're booking an obstetrician. She's like she's really good. Like usually you have an appointment with the obstetrician if you're like a private midwife client booked into a hospital. But she even just sent me a letter saying like this is the risks, but obviously you want to have a home birth, so you do you kind of thing. But this is my recommendations." So that
That's
was
so
really
good.
easy. Last
Yeah.
time I had to have like a meeting with an obstetrician, but you can hear about that in my last podcast.
Yes.
But I ended up, she's like, yeah, this obstetrician, she's happy to come and have a chat to you, but she does only wants to have a chat to you if you want to be like speak to her. She doesn't want to like force herself on you because there's no point. Like she knows that home birthing women like do what they want and like
Mm.
but if you're happy, I can go to have a chat to you. And I said, you know what, I'm happy to have a chat with her. I
Yeah.
ended up, I reckon we chatted for like 45 minutes. It was amazing. And it was so nice. She was really nice. She came in and she like pulled a chair and sat down, like no standing over you and telling you what's what. But she
Mm.
really asked me about what I wanted, that kind of thing. But from the discussion, I said to her, do I have preeclampsia? Like, what are you concerned that I'm going to have a brain bleed in liver and that kind of stuff? Like, am I going to have a
Mm.
stroke from my blood pressure? But she was more talking about the risks of rupture, and we were talking about all this weird stuff like classical scars. Well, I didn't even have a classical scar, and I'm not concerned. I didn't feel concerned about the rupture risk. I'd done all that work with the previous birth, so I wasn't even worried about it. I was like more worried about this like blood pressure and preeclampsia stuff. And she's going on about rupture rates. I already know the evidence. Thanks for letting me know. And she like gave good evidence. I couldn't fault her on her stats from my experience because I will like pull them up if they're wrong. But I said, yeah, great, that's awesome. But am I at risk with this like preeclampsia? She goes, oh, she didn't really seem concerned at all. She's like, my main thing is this is what it feels like. This is what the headache feels like. She's like, it's here and it's here. It feels like this. These are the symptoms. If you feel this, please promise me that you'll come into hospital. I said, absolutely. I'm not like going to risk our lives on this. I just don't want to do an intervention if it's not necessary. So she was great. She said, the only thing I want you to do is like choose a date that you're going to tap out because this can't go on forever kind of thing. She said, my preference would be that you'd have a cesarean like right now. Like we'd go wheel you out and give you a cesarean. Like that's what my preference. But obviously you get to choose what you want because your body.
It's
And
so
even when I look,
unreal that conversation when she's saying,
but
"No,
it's at
I'm
least you're being honest, you know?
she
Like,
is," but
thanks for
she's
the
like,
honesty.
"I'm so like I'm not worried about you having preeclampsia, but if this happens, then let me know." But I am a surgeon, so my preference is we just get it over and
Yeah.
done with now. Like
Yeah. She's
it's
like,
got
you're
to
over
end at
40
some
weeks.
point, and you're like, "Well, the baby will come one day. It's
Yeah.
one day, someday soon."
So
But
at least
yeah,
it's not, I don't think it's coercive though, just to say what your
no,
preference.
no,
Like,
no.
thanks for telling me the truth.
It is her preference. I mean, she's a surgeon, and that
Yeah.
would be your preference, wouldn't it?
Yeah, she's like,
You
you're
know,
40 and three. Like, what are we waiting for? Let's just get this baby out, move
yeah,
on with our lives. And I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, I'm just one of your difficult home birth ladies, just sitting here like, I
But
don't want to do that.
yeah, and she was respectful. Like it's just it's so interesting because like to have a candid conversation like that with somebody who wasn't coercive but ultimately, people are what they are. Like if you're a surgeon, you're a surgeon. Of course, that's going to
Yeah.
be your preference. And it just rings so true that, people just show up as they are. But it's really nice when you have a positive discussion with somebody that you feel respected, her. You can
Yeah.
actually just get
She definitely did. She's
the.
like, I can tell that you know some stuff, like done a bit of research. And she was pregnant too. So when after our chat, I was like, yeah, good luck to you. She's
Luck
like,
to
yep,
you.
she's like,
She's,
got my date.
yeah, I was gonna say, I got my date.
We giggled about that together. It was so nice. We just had a joke about it because obviously
Oh,
we are
that's
like
nice.
making different choices for ourselves, but like who cares? I just
Yeah,
promised her that, yeah, she just said, make sure you come in if you don't feel right. And I said, yep,
yeah.
gold. But even in my notes, I just looked at them before and she wrote like next to the scribble that they do in pregnancy book, she wrote largely stable next to that. So I was like, there you
Okay,
go. The preeclampsia stuff's largely stable. It's just like slightly out.
okay.
But I'm still trying to prove myself. So I go for another ultrasound privately
So,
for my private.
I'm still trying to prove myself.
So 40 and 4, because I think they wanted me to do one at the hospital and I just went to our usual private person that I get recommended to.
Yes.
And everything's perfect. And I drank lots of water before leading up to that one. And my fluid was, they said between 9 and 13, and the cut you had to be at least 7. So I was like, yes, I did that.
You did do that. You drink a lot of water.
And everything was perfect, but they said that the baby was measuring at 4.3 kilos. I was like, what the hell? Like, usually I'm like, my baby's too small.
Yeah. So
I was like,
usually you're
wow,
having a tiny
solid
baby,
baby.
and now you're having a big baby this time,
Yeah.
allegedly.
Yeah. But I did some blood tests as well. And they were kind of slightly dodgy. But then my private midwife said, I want to call you. And I said, yeah, sure. I had her on loudspeaker in the car with my husband in there. And I said, everything was great. We've got amniotic fluid now. And she's like, yeah, but I really need to tell you that I have to strongly suggest that you birth in hospital. There's a risk of saying all the risks of high blood pressure. You've got like uncontrolled, not uncontrolled or whatever, but blood pressure. You could have a stroke. She's going through all of the risk factors again. And I could see my husband, he was driving, he was just like rolling his eyes. But I was like, stop it. Rude. It's like, yep, I understand. Yep, I just want to take it day by day, blah, blah, blah. And then at 40 and 6, she came for the morning appointment and she's like written in my book, still wanting to go day by day. That's kind of like the way I took the pregnancies. I was like, just one more day. Like I've had a baby at 38 and 4, but then 38 and 4 would come and go, and then it would be 39, then it was 40. And according to my original date, this was actually according to my dates, it's 42 weeks, but she's
Mm.
40 and 6, so I appreciated that. But yeah, I'm getting really over it by now. I was in pain, like this is the most painful pregnancy. All of like the hip, all your round ligaments are aching. Like baby just needs to leave. Like every night, I'd go to sleep hoping that labor would kick in. Every morning, I was waking up still pregnant, telling everyone just one more day, and I'm just like, man, this is like torture. We just have this baby already, so that I don't have to go in and go get just a little pop of the waters and have a baby, which
Yeah.
I know is never going to happen.
Are you
But
feeling
yeah,
like a
that day
lot
I
of
was
pressure?
really
Are you feeling like a lot of pressure at this point? Like you think it's going to be
definitely.
one more day, and then it stretches out.
Yeah, the midwife even said to me, if we'd known like 4 weeks ago it's going to be 4 more weeks, we thought, oh, maybe the end of this, maybe this weekend, maybe next weekend. And she's like, if I knew, I would have been like even more pressuring for me to not. But the good thing about her was that, like, I strongly want you to go to the hospital and have a hospital birth, but I'm not going to dump you. So that was the
Yes.
coolest thing about her.
Yeah, I think I
So I'm
remember
not,
our
she goes, I believe that it's safer for me to be there, like if anything happens, than for you to just do it and have a free birth. So I'm not going to dump you, but I still have to say that blah, blah.
mm,
So that was cool.
yeah, I remember our conversations and I just kept saying, but she's still saying she'll support. I couldn't believe it. Like I was like, I've never heard of this before. Like it's just, and I just kept saying to you like, but she's still gonna support you, isn't she? Like this is
Yeah,
crazy. And I was just like gobsmacked and also like amazed for you because if she had have dropped you, your choice would have been free birth with your doula or go into the hospital. And that's a horrible position to be in. She's right.
yeah,
Having a medical professional there when you want one is going to be more likely the safest option, provided that they're going to show up, in a good space when they come and that they're not
mm,
fretting and freaking out, which is good.
yeah, exactly. So I'm grateful for that. But then, yeah, that day I was feeling really heavy. I
Mm.
came in, coming into the office. We have our own business, so I come and see my husband for lunch. We go for a walk into town. But I'm really waddling now. I'm like over it. I'm sore. I'm like sick of advocating. I'm sick of crying. I'm sick of like worrying. And even like the grannies and my mum are like, oh, you've been pregnant for a while now. You've been pregnant a bit of a long time. I'm like, mum, shut up. I know. No, like I don't know, it must be like the old school way of going, like you shouldn't go over a certain gestation and that kind of thing.
For far too long. I'm like, when you say that, I'm thinking like, oh man, we should have got you to do the dance
Yeah,
and and got a video recording of you or something doing the dance.
yeah, I know. Oh. But yeah, anyway, that day feeling rough, and then I think I had a bit of spare time in the afternoon, so I was like, I'm gonna have a chiral adjustment, try and see if I can like get this straightened out. And then while I was at the chiro, she has another lady. No, I was actually running early for the appointment, so I was like, I'm gonna get my toes done, I got my toes painted, had my little back massage, and there's those chairs at those places, they're awesome. Then I went and got an adjustment, and then in her office, she had another lady who does some kind of kinesiology kind of thing, and the chiro goes to her, oh, I think Sarah's got a few fears, haven't you? I said, yeah, I do. And she said, come here. And she did like tapped my forehead or did some kind of kinesiology thing. I'm like, do whatever you need to do. I'll take any help. So she did a couple of weird things. And then I got home and then all the kids there. My mum looked after them that day, which was awesome. But I was just feeling super grumpy. Even at my mum, I'm like a bit, don't talk to me kind of thing. But also thanks for looking after all my kids.
Mm.
She's like, I put a roast in the oven for you and this and that. And the
Ah.
next thing, yeah, okay. Like, how rude of me. Like, so I'm like, and the kids, they're irritating me. I'm like, Ryan, get them away from me. It's just really annoying, were really annoying me. But finally my dinner was ready and I was umming and ahhing if I should make gravy or not, but I really wanted gravy, but I couldn't be bothered. And so I'm making this gravy, sitting down to eat this like delicious, it was actually such a good meal. But then halfway through, I couldn't sit down anymore. I just had this like ache. I was like, my pelvis was aching and I had like a bit of a cramp, like a bit of a period cramp. And I was like, oh, can't eat this anymore. Damn, it's so yum. And then so I was like, I need alone time. So I went into the bathroom in the dark, just standing like swaying at the sink. And my husband comes in and he's like, is it happening? Is it happening? I'm like, leave me alone, mate. Like, can't you see I've like come in here to get away from you guys? Like so grumpy. So yeah, okay. But then he won't leave me. But he was so good. Like he got my affirmation recording that I liked because he had all I he got me to send him all the stuff I like to listen to. He got the little sound box thing, and I'm like, listen to this whole affirmation. It's about an hour and a half, so I'm still swaying in there. I'm trying some of Yolanda's techniques and worked pretty well. I was like, this didn't feel like pain. I felt opening. I was like really opening myself up to it. I'm like, come on, just open up and let the baby out if this is labor. But I was like, can't be labor though. It's going to take forever. Like, could be, probably be tomorrow, that kind of thing. If he comes in again, do you think it's it? Should I fill up the pool? Da, da, da. I'm like, okay, just fill it up then, just like to make him stop talking to me. So he's doing the pool, and then things started to get more intense. I was like, actually, thanks for that, because I think I might get into the pool. And then he said, oh, should I call someone? Do I call the midwife? And in my mind, I really wanted to keep her away as long as possible, because I just wanted to try and do it myself. Like, in my ideal world, I just like push a baby out, then she could come in and see everything was okay. I said, oh, maybe call them our doula. So he called her. She came over. Oh God, it's so different with a doula. Like, get a back rub, and she gets out the essential oils, and it all smells nice, and she lights the candles. I was like, oh, I didn't know I have this before. So good, like the towel, and here's a sip of water, and yeah, it was so nice. And she said to me, like, what's your pain? And I was coping really well. So I was like, oh, 6 out of 10, I think I'm okay. And I think around then I said to Ryan, yeah, probably call the midwife. I was like, damn, I was like mad at myself. I was like calling her too early. Damn you, Sarah, but I'm like, still call her. So he did, called her, and then eventually she rocked up. And yeah, after I said to my doula 6 out of 10, I reckon the next contraction was like 8 out of 10. It was like hardcore. I was like, you try and keep the low growls and that kind of thing. I'm in the pool, yeah, on my knees, doing the low earthy sounds. But this one, man, I'm screaming into the towel, like, onto the towel, like muffling myself. I'm like, man, that's not 6 out of 10, but I couldn't tell her, because I was like, right, I reckon I must have been in transition or something, because that was, yeah, hard. And they were like coming hard and fast. And this midwife says to me, can I check your blood pressure? And I turned around and I said, no, thanks. Get that. No, I didn't say get it away from me, but in my head, I'm like, get that fucking blood pressure machine. I don't want to see it. Like, oh, yeah. I'm just too far gone for that. And then, yeah, from there, it was just like intense contractions. My husband brought my two youngest kids were still awake, but my eldest was asleep. He brought them in. He's like, see, mum's fine. Like, having a baby, you can go back to watching TV now. And then as soon as he left, my waters just burst everywhere. Just burst. And I just had like intense contractions as baby was coming. It was like barreling out of me. And I could just feel like the power of the uterus just push this baby out. And I could definitely feel it was bigger than my last baby, stinging and burning and just howling. And he came sliding out. But yeah, during that when I was like feeling the intense contraction, I was just thinking to myself, I'm having a home birth. Fuck yeah. Like I'm like, if this goes well, I'm gonna be like praising the Lord, and like I'll like do whatever. Like I'll be so very grateful if I just get to have a home birth. Yeah, and this time, yeah, as soon as he slipped out, like I was like pumped. I grabbed that baby. I was like, oh, I did it. I was like screaming that I did it. It's like I never did that with my first home birth. I was just like, what else do I do for this to be over? But this one, I was like, I did this. I like in my head. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
In my head, I was just like thinking of everyone who was like telling me that this and that I couldn't do it. And I was like, fuck you and fuck you, fuck you. Like I was just like on the top of the world, like with this baby. I was just like, yes, I bloody fucking did it. And I didn't have to go to hospital. But also grateful and thank you to whichever angel was looking after me, that nothing bad happened. Also grateful for that.
Yeah, so very superstitious, aren't you, Sarah?
Yeah, I don't want to jinx myself. I don't want to be too like cocky. Like anything can happen in life, but it does, and like bad things do happen. So
yeah,
we can't pretend that every birth's going to go well. So I'm grateful that mine did. But yeah, sitting around for a while, felt trying to feed the baby, getting photos, that kind of thing. At first, he was quite like he wasn't doing much. He wasn't like making enough like breathe. I think he was breathing, but he wasn't like as responsive as what the midwife wanted. So she was like, give him a cuddle, try and get him to have a cry or something. So we were all talking to him and trying to get him going, but he was a bit slow to transition. So she got a little face sucker thing out and gave him a couple of face sucks and wafted a bit of oxygen under his nose, and he was fine. She said
Yeah.
that, sometimes she said she'd prefer to do that than have an issue where we'd have to transfer in. So I was like, yeah, cool. Happy for you to do that. He's all good now. That's great. And then it was my turn to try and get the placenta out. So I was sitting around for ages. Like last time, I just like popped a leg up and the placenta fell out. This time, pushing, squatting, kneeling, trying everything. I ended up getting out of the birth pool, and I could see the midwife was like getting nervous, and I was like, God damn, no way! Like, going to hospital to get my bloody placenta removed. We're having a placenta in this room. I'm not. So I'm there with one leg up, like completely naked, like one leg up, pulling on the cord, like pushing, and eventually, plop, out comes placenta. And then I like gave a big cheer because I knew it was all good. And they were like happy with the blood loss, maybe like 300 mils or something, I think they said. Like, and everything was fine. It was all good. I had a slight tiny second degree tear, I think she called it. So I opted to just do the honey thing and not get stitched. That's what I did last time. So yeah, it was a 3-hour labour. I went into labour at about 7. Well, I ate half my dinner until 7:15, and he was born at 10 p.m. So that was pretty quick. And then yeah, by the time everyone had cleaned up and left and done their blood pressure checks and everything, by the time the midwives left, it was about 12:30. Last thing she said to me is like, make sure you monitor how you feel because you can develop pre-eclampsia after birth. My husband's like, shut up. I thought, Ryan, it could happen though, so we have to be careful. And then I think at about 12:24, I sent you some photos. I was like, look what I did. Woo, done. And we finally, I can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. I think my microphone's playing up. I was saying it was so awesome to get those photos and that message. Like, so good to see that you had your baby and everything's
Yeah.
fine and you didn't have to stress anymore. I was so
No, it was so
happy
good.
for you. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was crazy though, because my two youngest were still awake watching Paw Patrol. It was 1 a.m. We're like, okay, guys, come on. Why haven't you passed out? So they got put to bed extremely late that night. But yeah, it was so nice. And I think I found, because I was looking through our messages and I saw a message I sent to you. It was at 5 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, I'd given birth at like 10, gone to bed at midnight, but still I'd written, I can't sleep because I just cannot believe I did this again. Another home birth, WTF. I've never felt so grateful, so looked after by God or the universe or whatever. And that, when I read that this afternoon, it made me feel like really emotional because you forget, like after the fact, like months go by and you're like, oh yeah, it's just birth, yeah, I just gave birth. But
Yeah.
yeah, you forget like how you felt at the time, and like that, it was just so cool to be able to. I feel like this birth was like the ultimate for me. Like the last birth was awesome because I got the home birth and I like broke through the glass ceiling, but this one was like proved it to myself. Like, okay, my thinking's always like, oh, anyone can do it once, but when you
Yeah.
do it twice, you're like, absolutely, unequivocally shows that I can do this because I've done it twice, not just like a once-off fluke. So
Yeah.
yeah, and it's been like so good. Love having the fourth baby. Like felt really, 3 kids is really hard. So is 4, but you kind of like give up a bit and you just like chill out and go whatever. Like with 4,
Yeah.
I like that about it.
Yeah.
Even if it's just as hard, you just like whatever. Come on, we're a big family now. I'm like so excited about. Yeah, I'm so happy that we have a big family. Could have just had the 2 and been happy. I love even though it's harder and more expensive,
Mm.
worth it. So it's awesome. So yeah, that was
So
it. Got through it. Didn't die.
back to what you felt was intuitively the right thing. And you had to work through some heavy conversations and pressure to have a hospital birth, but you intuitively felt this was the right choice for you, and it was the right choice because your baby and you were both healthy and safe, and your knowing was all well.
Yeah, and it was so nice to have that, like, have the evidence that that was the right thing to do, because
Yeah,
like in the back of your mind, sometimes you're like, is this the right thing? But like having that evidence, hard evidence that, yeah, because I can't imagine, they were asking me, they're wanting me to get induced 2 weeks before that. Like, what would have
yeah,
happened if I'd have gone in, got my waters broke? Because, they're always like, oh, we just pump your waters and then you'll go into labor. Like, no, for some people, yeah, that works. But I was like, no way, it's never going to, can't see it happening.
yeah,
And then and even like when I was talking to that obstetrician that I enjoyed, she was like, we can always put the drip up for you. And I was like, hey, for real, like that's so dangerous. Like
Yeah.
in my heart of hearts, I believe that is more dangerous than waiting for spontaneous labor.
Yeah. And many people would agree with that.
Yeah, so and
Yeah.
I was like grateful that she was giving it to me as an option because I know that's what some women choose and they want the drip and they would rather do that than have a cesarean. So cool, you do you. But for me,
Yeah.
I was like, no thanks.
Yeah.
Yuck. And I think like it
So
is listening to that yuck because sometimes you feel yuck when you're given an option and maybe we should just listen to that sometimes.
I said, especially for the overthinkers like you, Sarah, who
Yeah.
have a good intuition. I'm the same. We have good intuition, but we often overthink because we want to make sure everything's the perfect or the right decision.
Hmm.
So you're constantly like doubling back on yourself, and then you've got to find the evidence, but the evidence isn't really there because you don't know what the outcome's going to be. So that's where the optimistic people's lives are a lot easier, or the really deeply intuitive people who listen to themselves have an easier time because they don't have to then do the hard work of the searching the evidence, and you get the evidence, and then what do you do then? And you still don't know until all this thing happens, and then the thing happens and you're like, oh, thank gosh. Like what you said, thank God I survived because it was such
Yeah.
this
Ridiculous.
build up. And I mean, I can relate myself because I'm the same. And yeah, and a lot of people listening to this podcast are the same as well. So yeah, I think this was such a wonderful story. Thank you very much for sharing your story with us. Have you got any tips that you would like to share with people listening, or anything that you would like to say to them about that could be helpful for them?
Well, I strongly believe that you don't have to fit into a perfect box to have a home birth.
Yeah,
I get a bit, I love all the positive messaging about home birth. It's always like, well, home birth is the most safe choice for low risk women, whatever that means. Like, what does low and high risk mean? I'm not saying, I
yeah,
don't even think I'm high risk, by the way. I just thought I had a few dodgy blood tests, that big whoop. But yeah, I think home birth is the safest option for people who don't want to go down the cascade of interventions. They don't want to be negatively interfered with. Like if you're trying not to, yeah, have different interventions. And I think perhaps home birth is the right thing for you, but it's also like what feels right for you. Listening to your intuition, yeah, searching for what you feel is right for you. And I think, a lot of us, we're trying to do the right thing all the time, but who cares about that? Like this is giving birth, it's an instinctual mammal thing. Like let's just like do what we think's right for us. Because I know no mother is going to ever want to jeopardize the health or safety of their baby, and most people don't want to jeopardize their health and safety of themselves either. So yeah, I think it's really listening to the woman. And like my midwife in the end, she the next day or whenever I saw her the next time, she was like, "Wow, you taught me a lot about birth."
mm,
And I was like, "Oh wow, that's really like such a cool thing for you to say, like
yeah,
trusting the woman and that kind of thing." She's like, "I learned so much," like, and I was like, "Wow, that's really cool."
yeah,
And I was like, "I bet you wouldn't have taken me on if you knew all of that stuff." She's like, "Oh, I was just taking on like a couple of, VBAC 2C, like." She's
yeah,
like, if I knew all of this, I would have been like, no way in hell. Like, this
yeah,
like stress me out.
yeah. But she stuck with you. So, and then she must have needed some lessons too.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's good that she
maybe. Yeah,
took that on herself, and she's chosen to learn from that experience as well, which is great. That's all we
yeah,
can do.
exactly. Like all of us are first timers at everything.
We are, yeah. That's all we're doing is this human experience, learning things and hoping for the best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate you coming back on and sharing your story again, or this new story, but sharing your time again on the podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for all of the work you do. Actually, like listening to all of the stories from the people that came before me really helped me get that third birth of my first home birth. And so thanks to all those ladies that continue to share their stories because that's where we can see real evidence and real stories from people, not just numbers on a page.
100%. Yeah. That's the only way to get the message out is for women to share these experiences and for us as women to learn. Like before, humans, that's how we learned. Like we learned through
Yeah.
storytelling and like sharing stories and experiences. And now everything's like research this and research that. And it just becomes, I mean, imagine if you knew everything about, like, oh, if you step outside your house today, you've got a 25% chance of being hit by a car, or obviously it's not that
Yeah.
high, but I mean, it would just drive you insane. But stories, I mean, we all love stories. We either read books, watch movies, watch TV shows, or listen to podcasts. And that is the human language of inspiration and guidance and learning. So I'm getting all like
Yeah.
philosophical and excited now, but oh, I never learn as much as I do when I listen to women or listen to stories. Like, you can learn so much. And so, yeah, people share their stories, because if you're listening here, share your story. I find sharing my story with people, because they look at me and they think, she's fat, she's a big woman. And I say, it is what it is, right? That's how society views a bigger person like me on a lot of people, not everyone. But they'll think, well, if she can do it, I can do it, because I don't have a big body like hers, or I don't have this. And people see your humanness and they think, well, shit, if she can do it, I can do it. And that's powerful, because it's just ordinary women. It's not like Gal Gadot, who I love a lot, by the way, because she's Wonder Woman and she's got the most beautiful face and body, but just average women coming to share their Wonder Woman stories, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Sarah. I really appreciate you.
No worries. Thanks, Ash.
Thank you for tuning in to the VBAC Homebirth Stories podcast. I hope today's story inspired you to trust your body, own your choices, and embrace the power of birth. If you love this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another mama who needs to hear this. Do you have a VBAC Homebirth story to share? I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on ashleywinning.com or on Insta at ashleylwinning. Until next time, take care and trust your body.